Do you have any hidden talents? You can't sigh. These are my questions that I want to ask my future date.
I don't think I have a hidden talent. That's the thing. I don't know that I'd have an answer because all of my talents are well known.
I was going to say clearly we would not be going on a second date. Oh my God.
This podcast represents the opinions of our hosts and guests. The content here should not be taken as medical advice and is for informational purposes only. This podcast also does not establish a standard of care, doctor-patient, or client relationship. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on the podcast or website. And because each person is so unique, all listeners are encouraged to connect with counseling and medical professionals for assistance with their personal journey. All people, places, and scenarios mentioned in the podcast have been changed to protect the privacy of those involved.
Welcome to We're Not Fine. I'm Dr. Talia Jackson.
And I'm Dr. Jensen. We thank you for listening every week to our deep and thought-provoking conversations about relationships.
Welcome back, friends.
Welcome to yet another edition, episode, session, appointment of We're Not Fine.
You guys, we have the best episode. I know we always say that. And this is why we say it, is because we're coming up with the content and it's stuff that we're obsessed with.
We are. And you know, when we were kind of discussing what we wanted to do for recordings, I just love talking about dating.
We do.
Yeah. It's
love
like a
it.
big deal, right? And we've had a dating matchmaker, Melissa, love you so much, Melissa Rogers.
Oh, she's
we've had so many great conversations about these things, but you know, it's interesting. I just find myself periodically wanting to talk about things like, what do you ask about on your first date? What do you need to know from that person?
What is it? And we just did a really fun exercise, which will show you how incredibly prepared we are, is that just a moment ago, we were like, okay, we've got this list. It's like 50 questions. What are the best questions to ask to know if you want to date someone, like first date questions, and a million gazillion questions to ask if you want to find out if they're a good marriage fit. And we decided we were going to pick our favorite 5 for dating and not tell each other, and then talk about them, and our favorite 5 for getting married. And I realized I had a really hard time with those instructions. 5 questions each is not enough. I had 11 of each that I feel are crucial, that you shouldn't even kiss someone until you know.
Oof. Or kiss first in the case of me.
Kiss
and
first
decide if
and
that
ask
chemistry
later.
is there and you enjoy the kiss.
Also,
Yes.
I will tell you, as I've maybe mentioned before, that my first date with Rob, I did not ask him. Actually, that's not true. I asked him questions, but I was so mesmerized by his glory and beauty that when I came home from the date, I did not remember. And I remember I lived at home through college because I was only 20. I was a mere babe. He was actually a cradle robber. Creep. But I remember she was like, well, does he have siblings? What job does he do? Where does he live? What's his story? Where is he from? And I was like, I don't have any recollection. I was
Because I'm
like
20.
Goo goo gaga land. Obsessed. And I didn't remember a single thing. So I may have asked the questions, but I clearly didn't care enough to listen.
I found myself thinking, is it different as you're younger? Like when you say you're 20?
Yeah.
Whereas if you were to date now, you'd be like, okay, I need to know these.
More
but
discerning.
I think more discerning for sure.
And we don't have that kind of time to like find these. Or maybe we've been through enough relationships that we're like,
we're not going to waste our time.
we're not going to waste our time.
No.
Okay, so also the way I was thinking about the before you date and before you get married is if you...
Which are very similar in some ways, to be honest, because some people date for marriage, right?
Some people date for marriage. I was feeling like they were kind of different. Because when you're dating, even if you're dating for marriage and even if you're dating for a long-term relationship, you still need to get a sense of this person's vibe and if it's compatible with your vibe. The questions for dating are about, like, are we compatible? Can we have fun together? Do our lifestyles make sense together? And dating for marriage, I feel like questions for marriage is a lot more serious. Like, you're assuming that you are going to be together. And now we have to figure out, like, what does your life routine look like? And do we talk about parenting and money? And like, oh my gosh, it's like next level. Okay, my first dating question. And I'll tell you why I think it's really important. It's a weird one.
Really?
Yeah, it's a weird one. You're going to be
Okay.
like, if you only have 5, this is what you're looking for. Okay, it also occurs to me, Doug and I are very different people. We are looking for different people, and our value systems are probably going to be reflected in the questions that we are asking.
I think that's true. I can't wait to hear.
Question number 1, what's something good that happened to you this week?
Oof, yeah, I did not pick that one.
Because I don't want to be with a negative ninny. I want to be with someone that can show me the highlights of their week, and they're not just complaining and whining and victims, but I want to be with someone who's excited about their life and has something positive to contribute to the conversation.
I don't even know that I want to comment on that. I get it. What I'm thinking is I've had really crappy weeks where I'm like, this week sucked. Everything was hard. It didn't go the way I'd like. There were just challenge after challenge, and you wouldn't date me a second time if I...
Well, I would then ask you this question to make sure that you weren't just a negative ninny, but you could also, even if you had a sucky week, you could be like, but you know what?
My
I
pillow
like
was
ice cream.
comfortable.
Yes. I'd be like, I'll give him another chance.
I had some
Tiramisu.
pho. I had some sushi or pho,
Pho.
which are some of my favorites.
Yeah, I would maybe go on a second date. If you could give me something that wasn't negative and miserable, I might date you again.
Which is really not hard for me, but anyway.
What's yours?
What's my question?
I showed you mine.
What do you like most about yourself?
I have that too.
Damn, I love that question. Okay, that's good.
Does
That's
that mean you're
interesting.
going to allow me to have an extra question?
No.
I know it.
Here's what I want to say about that, because you get to say why that's important to you. Confidence is an aphrodisiac. It's an attractive feature. Energy, positive energy, those sorts of things. And if people can know themselves well and they can be confident about themselves and they can say something that's great about themselves, I'm finding myself
Same.
thinking, what would I answer?
Please. You probably have like a scroll that you would unroll about all the things you love about yourself. It's probably hanging in your living room
I must,
from top to bottom.
I do feel I do love myself, and I feel
know.
grateful
Me
for my
too.
life. And I'm like, as my friends who were in Italy with me know, at that picnic table, I was handing out a little gift to each of them for coming, and I was crying the whole time, and all of them knew what it was about. I'm just so freaking grateful for everyone in my life and my kids and my career and every single one of you who comes to see me for therapy who might be listening to this. I can't tell you how much of an impact you make on my life.
Same.
So for me, I would say, it's really hard to pick.
But that's not what you love most about yourself. What you're
No.
talking about is like a depth of gratitude.
I'm also, I would say that my ability to be compassionate.
Yeah.
I would say my ability to connect with good people. My friend Sasha is so sweet about that group of people from Italy, because she met some of them for the first time, and actually with my lovely friends in Boston, they're spending the weekend together this weekend. The reality is, she's like, you're the reason everyone came together. You're the reason why
you're the
these
glue.
amazing people have found each other and that enjoy each other and are just ridiculously quality people in this life. So,
And I think, Doug, case in point, that it's like it feels really good to be with someone who feels good about themselves.
That's correct.
Because if you're secure and you're confident, it's like a real value add instead of maybe someone who is a little bit of like a bottomless pit of like, I need you to reflect to me how good I am, a little insecure attachment. I need you to tell me I'm good or else I don't feel good. That it just feels good to be around someone who feels good about who they are and is continuing to grow, of course. Maybe not like a narcissist or super like smug.
No, well, and also like I would, if I were on a date, I remember going on a date with someone who said, I don't like my body right now. I feel like I'm out of shape. And I'm like, if someone said, but I know what I want to do with that, and I know I have the empowerment and the self-determination to make that different, I would find that very appealing.
Yeah.
Whereas if
the
somebody
growth,
kind of says, I
not just
just kind of, this is who I am. And yeah, the self-deprecating is a massive turnoff for a
Yes.
lot of people. And so liking something about yourself, that's why I would encourage people to ask that question. Like, what do you like about yourself? Because I think their answer is going to be really important if they say that, I don't know, there could be some icky answers too, but that's what you learn about that person and whether you share values about how people treat people.
Do you have any hidden talents? You can't sigh. These are my questions that I want to ask my future date. Stop looking so weird. Do you have any hidden talents? I want to know, like, what's kind of fun and quirky. Stop. Interesting about them. Because I like people that are like into odd things or have developed weird skills. Did you learn that on a beauty queen pageant?
I was in Mr. Minnesota teen pageant. I was.
Oh my God, I totally believe that.
I know. I'm sure you do.
I was a fish in a Jewish community center production of a really sad little kid show.
Is that a hidden talent? Yes. I know how to be a fish. Okay.
It was a real depressed fish.
I don't think I have a hidden talent. That's the thing. I don't know that I'd have an answer because all of my talents are well known.
I was going to say clearly we would not be going on a second date. Oh my God. Because I am renowned and everybody knows about my talents.
I am renowned.
I'm thinking about your secret talents.
Do I have one?
You're a great gift giver. But if you said that on a date, I would think you were a douchebag.
Okay. I'm going to go on to my question. I don't love that question. I don't know what my answer would be.
Well, maybe we're not looking for the same person. Maybe I just wouldn't date you and you just have to accept it.
I wanted the question answered. And by the way, this is a very therapy-like question, and I feel bad for the person sitting across from me if I go on a date with you and I ask this question, what is your family like? Do you have siblings? I want to know about traumas. I want to know about life events that are substantial. I want to know about, tell me about your life. Like, tell me what memorable experiences. Tell me about your family. You learn so much from someone about what they say about their family that they grew up in.
That's the home run. That's the goal.
I think it's the home run,
gold
but it's also a big therapy question. So like if somebody said, I'm not, which by the way, I could answer this. I'm not always, I wasn't close to, I'm not close to all my family. I wasn't particularly fond of my mother relationship, as people have known from previous podcasts, ours and my friend Kelly's. So I don't know, you learn a lot about, and then I would say, of course, why? Like, I don't think that's necessarily a bad sign one way or the other, if you're close, if you're not close.
That's right.
But I would want to know, like, tell me about your relationships and what they mean. And I'm a huge family guy myself. I want my kids around me all the time. And I have chosen family as my friends, which are really significant. So bottom line is, it's a really golden question. I don't know, the sibling question is kind of interesting. I don't know that that's included in the family. So
I'm really
I
glad
just
you
wanna know what they
asked
think.
it because
Yeah.
that didn't waste one of mine, but I'm going to piggyback and say that's huge. And I can think of all sorts of ways that you can ask that without sounding like a therapist. I love it. I think it's...
I don't think I can ask it ever without sounding like a therapist.
Well, that's just because you talk like this when you're asking that question.
Yeah, when I'm with my friends, I'm like, so tell me about your childhood. I don't.
Are you ready for my number 4? You're going to hate this one too.
I probably am.
If you're having a hard day, how do you usually turn it around? I don't care. I love it because it's like, do you have coping skills? Are you going to expect me to turn it around? Are you going to come home with like a dark cloud of misery that's going to negatively impact my life? Are you going to be responsible for your own emotional state? And do you know how to turn it around?
So one of the reasons that I did not pick that question
Yes.
is because I think the assumption of turning it around, like sometimes that's not the goal. It's not about turning it around. It's about sometimes just being in that moment and letting yourself feel what you're feeling. That's why I didn't like it. However, I'm also going to say that I rely on my friends to help me. Like, I have no problem saying I am like.
But that's a good
Do you remember
answer.
2 weeks ago? Do you remember 2 weeks ago when I called you and I said, I can't do this today? I am in
Yeah.
the worst possible mood
That's
ever.
right.
I can barely get going.
I'm so
right?
glad you did. But Doug, that is an absolutely acceptable response to how do you turn it around
Don't do the podcast.
is like ask for what you need.
I
or
do
if
ask.
it's like I need to process with my person.
Yep.
Absolutely acceptable. The part
that's fair. That's
the
fair.
part
I like
I'm
that.
twitchy about is there are people that come home with a black cloud over their head and it negatively impacts the entire energy of the household.
Like Pigpen.
Yes. And I'm not cool with it. I feel like if you are in a sour and foul mood and you're a
Sour.
part of a family, you need to figure out how to process that so it doesn't negatively impact other people. Or just say, you know what? I love you. I am like really struggling right now. Can we either process this together or I am going to just like take a little time for myself to work through it?
All of that is good. I'm really thinking about,
Yeah.
like, I am a hard person to turn around once I'm in a pig pen.
Yes, but you don't come in with an angry black cloud that negatively
don't.
impacts everybody.
I do not.
You show up as, I'm in a horrible mood. Can we process?
So it's kind of funny. My dear friends, James and Sasha, brought me to another wild event, and I was in a really horse crap mood. So I got in their car because they came to pick me up. They're so sweet. And I said, guys, I am not in a good place. I'm feeling a little low energy, a little low motivation. I said, please don't think I'm not grateful for getting to hang out with my favorite hockey team in the planet. I got a bowling shirt from Jake Middleton.
Crush.
I'm crushing it. So here's what I have a total crush on him. So I think there's a part of this that I do think, and by the way, by the time we left, like I got a little teary being around the wild again and hanging out with that crew. They're just so important to me. They give me such joy watching them. I love the team. So I don't know. I mean, I agree with you. I do come in and just say, guys, just FYI.
Yeah.
I called you and I said, just FYI, I am in a shithole right now. What's great about my friends is nobody's afraid of it.
Well,
right?
but you're being honest and you're also
I am.
not
Yeah.
like silently brooding.
Yep.
All right, let's hear.
Next. So how long is your longest friendship is my next one.
Oh, I have that one too.
Do you really? There's something about like longevity of supports and friends that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Shout out to my dearest friend Sue from Boston, who, as we were sitting around the table in Italy, has been my friend since third grade.
My Leslie.
Yeah?
We were 13. It was 7th grade. So
Isn't that something?
You went. It's the cutest.
And, you know, Sue and I probably weren't best friends at that point, but we continued to evolve and we were in each other's lives. And then she joked recently about being in a play together where we got married.
It's just like my childhood play.
But let me change that a little bit. I would ask the question if I were going on a date, and I would encourage people to say, tell me about your supports. Who provides support to you?
Yeah.
That is a therapeutic question that I ask in my assessment of people when they first come in, because I want to know, do you have a group of people outside of me? You know, am I your sole person for this supportive venture that you're on? But I want to know. And again, I feel like incredibly grateful. I have probably 15 of you who I can rely on for anything. I can call at any
That
point.
could not have made me feel less special. But
I have
it's okay,
one
I'll
of you.
just swallow that too.
I have one of you that I rely on all the time.
There's also like that question is asking like, how do you deal with hardship too? Because like, if you've had a really long friendship, you've been through stuff.
Yep. I have one more question.
Oh.
I want to get through this and this one's the most important actually.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it's one of my big pet peeves about people who go on dates and they have no clue what they're looking for.
Oh, Lord.
So I would say to somebody, so tell me what you're looking for. And I'm not sure I care what the answer is. I want a, excuse my language, fuck buddy. I want a friends with benefits. I want an open ethically non-monogamous relationship. I'm looking for a polyamorous relationship. I'm looking for a monogamous marriage with somebody. I'm looking to really connect with someone
Someone
for the
who knows what
a
they
long-term
want.
relationship. I think everyone going into these situations, and by the way, it might sound contrary to what I just said, but you can say, I don't know. Like, it really would be okay to say, I'm not sure what that is.
But that's still a conversation
It
where you
is.
can even talk about the hard stuff. I
And
love
it's-
that. It
I do
feels
too.
crucial. That
So
may be number one.
I think, by the way, I kept it till the end because it is number one to me.
Because you're saving the best for last.
I sometimes do that.
My marriage ones are also a little bit funny and rando, and they're not in any order, but it feels like crucial to know these things before you sign on for a long relationship.
Okay.
Okay. How important is it for you to have a routine in your day? I think when you're dating, it doesn't even matter. But when you're married, it matters. If you have someone who like sets an alarm, has a morning meditation, takes vitamins, works out, like does the routine and is very routine oriented versus someone who's really like fly by the seat of their pants, just sees what the day has to unfold for them, that might be totally great and complimentary, or it might start bugging people.
Yeah, routine is different for people, right? Some people need a strict routine, some people don't, but it's important to ask what that might look like. You'll even get an answer, I like it to be flexible. I'm going to go off this list for my first one, which is tell me how you feel, how would you rate your level of being able to communicate about both things that are great and things that are not great? Are you someone that wants to check in regularly? Are you someone that at the end of the day comes in the house and says, "How's your day, honey?" And you really want an answer to it?
Oh.
Like, are you that person, or are you someone who doesn't want to chat all that much and really keeps a lot to themselves?
Oh my God, I love it.
So the communication thing, honestly, I would just say, so tell me about communication for you. Are you good at it? But by the way, you're going to know.
The texting is really
Right.
important, but you'd already
that's a
know
good
that
question.
before marriage. But like, are you someone that likes to communicate often, or are you someone that it's a little out of sight, out of mind, and we'll have like a good connection when we come home?
Yeah.
Doug, I'm stealing that one too. I love it. Okay.
Okay.
Why do you think your previous relationships haven't been successful? And I think that's crucial because you get to find out if the person is learning, if they're owning their stuff, if they are not demonizing the ex, but in fact, if they notice ways in which they may have contributed and that they're growing and changing their behaviors.
So I did have what's
That
happened in your
look.
previous relationships that you want to avoid in ours. So it feels very similar. However, I'm going to go to the next one.
Okay.
So what are your goals for the future? Like, what do you see in your future? Where do you want to live? What career are you looking for? How's your education goals? And I'm going to include in this, by the way, like kids, which is a whole separate category, but I think it's important.
Yes.
Like, you have to find out, does that person want kids?
Oh my God,
How do they
yes.
want to spend their life? Like, what are your life goals? And by the way, when we're young, like when you met Rob at 20, we don't know. We have no idea.
We have to grow together.
Well, I remember going to grad school and being like, I have no idea if out of this I'm going to be a good therapist or not.
Oh, yeah.
And so I remember starting with people and I'm like, God, let's hope this works.
Yes, like not
right?
a lot of confidence.
I know.
The fraud complex.
You just don't know.
No,
the imposter syndrome. Yep.
There's a leap of faith there. And I love
There
that.
is.
They're also like, it's about, conversations about like, do you want to have kids? Conversations about finances, future, like,
Absolutely. I mean, one of the
there's
questions.
so many.
Well, and the question that and I apologize, I'm going to go on that, what you just said, the meaning of money. Remember our financial
Yeah.
person who talked about like what money means?
Yes.
That guest we had was so good about just talking about like, what is the association you have with money? What is the way that money was managed growing up, et cetera?
It's amazing.
You and I both know that finances can be a big issue for relationships.
And maybe less so in dating, although I do think that money is symbolic of generosity and versus withholding, not just of, monetary things, but everything. Okay, Doug, don't be mad at me.
I won't be
I
mad
have
at you.
lumped 3 questions into one, and it's going to be a run-on sentence, but let's just pretend it's one sentence. What's your history with mental health, comma, how do you manage your mental health, and how do you feel about individual therapy?
I don't think I think there a lot of these were together.
I feel like that is crucial because what we've realized is that when you're dating and even when you're marrying, it has nothing to do with the issues. It has to do with somebody's self-awareness and willingness to own their own shit and move forward. That's what we're looking for. And so if you're asking questions about mental health and how you feel about getting support around mental health, I feel like that's going to be a great person to marry because they're willing to work on themselves.
I agree. And not afraid to take a look at those deeper issues. Therapy can be a very fearful experience if you haven't done it before. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. And there's a lot of people that think we're like voodoo people that...
Or that we're going to judge, or that
Yeah,
we're going to be
for
like,
sure.
you're
Yeah.
the problem. That is not what their individual therapy. It's like a compassionate witness holding your hand, working through hard things, noticing patterns that you might not be noticing, and then brainstorming together. I mean, our clinical judgment, but we're like rolling out the red carpet one step ahead of where you want to be and your agenda.
However, if you're my client and I do think you're responsible for something that's not going well in your life, I'm going to tell you.
But that's why noticing patterns.
No, I
We notice patterns.
So my next question,
Yes,
which
tell me.
no one's going to be surprised about, is about sex. Like, what is a fulfilling sex life for you is a fantastic question to ask somebody. I will never forget the couple that I said, so how's your physical intimacy? And the guy I was with, working with a couple of men.
Can I play the guy?
You can.
That's personal.
You know the story.
What?
I started laughing and I said, you know where you are, right? And his partner laughed, and it was a very funny conversation. And of course, we got to it eventually. But for me, I also want to say, and I've noticed that in a lot of people, myself included, my sexual needs, my kinks, my fetishes, my experience, my whatever I like sexually changes over time. And so
Yeah, we get to grow. And
we get to grow
change.
and we get to talk about it, which goes back to the communication. Like, can you talk about things that are difficult?
That's so good.
But I really want to know. Like, I find, I personally believe that physical intimacy, even if it's hand holding or snuggling or sitting on the couch together, can be touch in any way can be really, really important to maintaining connection. So I think it's valuable in a relationship, unless, of course, there's some physical trauma that makes touch really difficult, at which time, you know, of course, you talk about that
Yeah, I
more
was going to say,
thoroughly
but
as
that's
well.
something
It
that
is,
people
for sure.
can work through.
And it still doesn't negate the question, like, what is a satisfying sexual relationship for you,
That's
which might
right.
be, I want to say, asexual, right?
And
It
that's
is not
legit.
important to me. It is legitimate.
If it's not about unresolved trauma that you don't want to face. If it's just like, this is who I am in the world. This is my last one. And yes, it's a run-on sentence because it's 2 in 1.
Shocking.
Okay, what are some important values and traits you would want to instill in our children if we want to have children, which is a segue from how do you feel about the way you were disciplined as a child, and do you want to do anything differently? If you want to have kids, I feel like that's crucial because we know of couples, we've worked with couples where one person might have hated the way they were disciplined. However, that's the way you discipline a child because I turned out well and they didn't maybe do a lot of their own work. Really important to know how people feel about that.
I do think that's important. And I also think that, you know, in addition to, and I think it's important for a lot of different reasons, including, you know, and I'm going to say too, we don't know until we're in the circumstance how we're going to do. I've made
that's
parenting
real.
mistakes. I've done silly things with my kids that I shouldn't have done as a form of like managing difficult times, et cetera. And I'm like, you know, we make mistakes, right?
Of course.
So it's almost like just, it's good to have a discussion about it and at least get a framework for what that person might be thinking. In all of this, Talia, and this conversation is fun, and we could go another hour. And there were several other good questions that we kind of missed. And I want to say that everyone is individually needing to kind of assess what they need in a conversation with somebody. Like, if you have a kid already and you're coming into that dating situation, how do you feel about my kid? What role do you anticipate playing in that child's life, depending on what their age level is? You know, I've had people that I go on dates with, my kids are adults. They've said, I've always wanted to be a dad. Well, you're not going to be a dad. You're going to be maybe an important person in their life. You could certainly be a mentor. You could certainly play a significant role. But dad time is over. They know who their dad is. So, it's an interesting thing to navigate that conversation. So everyone goes into these dating situations differently.
I feel like that might be a really great topic for future.
Oh, yeah.
Just like
I like it.
step parenting, step childing.
Yes.
You guys, thank you so much for humoring us. This was like this is just our favorite. And where can they find us?
We'renotfine.com. You can subscribe on there and get updates on all of our future events, what's going on with the podcast, what's going on with anything We're Not Fine related. but also, and more importantly, and what we really, really value is your input. So if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have anything you're wanting us to cover as a topic, if you have a very specific situation that you're dealing with in your life and you want us to cover it on this podcast and talk about it anonymously, we will never identify who you are.
No, never.
And so we're glad to give that feedback and glad to take that information, and you can put your information in, you can write questions on there and have them sent off to us, and we will take a look at them.
And we might even give you a really sexy Italian name and like set a whole vibe for your question. We're also on YouTube, so you could see how Doug is like single white female, following my every move, everything I wear, he has to wear. I mean, like seriously. And it's We're Not Fine on YouTube. That's like maybe my favorite place to watch us.
On YouTube's?
And then we're on Instagram. We're Not Fine Pod, and Dr. Talia Jackson, and Douglas L. Jensen, and we're on TikTok, and those videos are fire thanks to Dig.
Oh my goodness. I actually, I had to just write to Dig a few minutes before this episode happened.
The rope.
Check
them
there's
out,
some
guys.
really, and before Dig, Alex, our editor, put some very funny TikToks together where a lot of times when I'm swearing, he'll put a quack in there, and I
Like
love
an actual duck.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Cute.
And there's conversations about me connecting to The Rock, which is, we're almost the same.
Like the same. Like twinning.
Yeah,
Bye, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.
always grateful.
We'll
Take
see
care
you
of
next
yourself.
time.
Bye.